Thank you so much, Shana, and great to be here and wonderful to be sharing this discussion with my colleagues on the stage. That was so great to have that note from Cara at the beginning. I mean, that framing around both ambition and collaboration are the two parts of what we need now. The climate pledge is fundamentally based on ambition. 2040 net zero makes the climate pledge the most ambitious shared corporate commitment. And one of the reasons why we at Global Optimism were so keen to partner with Amazon in creating this is we saw the power of ambition in the lead up to the Paris Agreement. When a few companies came together and established a net zero goal, it may not have led to the world changing trajectory in and of itself, but it captured the imagination collectively and actually led to a huge impact as it inspired more and more companies, then investors and countries to get on that road. So we really see this as a beacon that can drive more and more ambition. But alongside that, we also need collaboration in order to deliver it. And we need collaboration of different types, yes, between sectors, but between different types of companies and different types of players. So I should have introduced myself. I'm Tom RIVETT-CARNAC. I am the co-founder of Global Optimism. I'm also the co-host of Outrage and Optimism, the podcast which comes out every week. And I'm very pleased to be having this discussion today with two very different individuals who are going to approach this from different vantage points. One is a large IT firm seeking to decarbonize its operations and those of its clients. And the other is a new tech firm seeking to bring nature's ability to sequester carbon back to the light. Both are vital for the goal of net zero emissions, which is in the Paris Agreement and a key part of the climate pledge. So first, serial entrepreneur Diego Saez-Gil is the founder and CEO of Pachama, the first carbon offset platform to use machine learning and remote sensing technologies to monitor carbon captured by forest around the world. KUTTY is the regional manager of green initiatives for Infosys, and MATHSY is an environmental engineer with nearly 20 years experience in the environmental field and currently manages Infosys's climate change strategy. Infosys, of course, a signatory to the climate pledge. Now, we don't have a huge amount of time, so I'm going to dive in, and I'd like to start with you, MATHSY, for the first question. Infosys has long been a leader in this space, was awarded a UN Global Climate Action Award at COP25, and also the first Indian signatory to RE100. And today you made a major announcement. Can we just start? I'd love to have you unpack and share what you announced.
Thank you so much, Tom. I must say I'm very, very, very excited to make this announcement. It's been a long journey for Infosys, and today we just announced that we are carbon neutral across all our scopes, and we were the first ones at the UN to make a commitment to go carbon neutral. So here we are, over a decade of work and effort, and it's paid off with us announcing our carbon neutrality for the financial year 2020.
Fantastic. Congratulations. That's really amazing news. And I know you've worked hard on it. And I know from experience how much work goes into these announcements. So sometimes we're guilty of seeing many companies make these types of announcements. We should always be aware of the individuals that have been working very hard. So congratulations. And can I just ask you, you were the first Indian company to join the climate pledge, net zero by 2040, very ambitious. I'd love to have you unpack for us why you made that decision. There may be many listening who are considering the types of commitment they might make, or maybe they should make a more ambitious commitment. Can you unpack why you did that and how that's worked through your system and how it's been for you to be part of it?
So, Tom, I think it was a very easy decision for Infosys when, Amazon approached us for the climate pledge, just because of two reasons. The whole thinking really resonated with the Infosys way of thinking. Infosys realizes that climate change is a major problem that humanity faces today. It's one of the greatest risks that the world faces. And while being a part of the IT company, we're a part of the problem. I think the way Infosys looked at it was, we wanted to be a part of the solution as well, right? And so we went on this carbon neutrality journey. And what worked for us with the climate pledge was that there was a net zero ambition. Like you said, it has to be an ambitious target if we have to address this risk that we're talking about, right, on a day-to-day basis. The climate pledge provided a platform to aim towards net zero, 10 years ahead of the Paris Agreement timelines itself, which is great, because that is what the world needs. And the second thing was the whole approach towards collaboration, and a universal action is needed. So Infosys alone or 10 other companies alone just work towards this goal. That is not sufficient. And somebody as a giant like Amazon, if we're working towards this kind of collaboration, I think we can galvanize a lot more action, and that's what we need. So it was an easy decision for Infosys to hop onto this journey and take on the pledge.
I love it. It should always be an easy decision. This is the right thing to do. That's fantastic. So, so Diego, I'd like to turn to you. And I should start by saying, the Climate Pledge Fund is one of the most exciting parts of the pledge. Amazon created this $2 billion fund to invest in companies that provide solutions that we need to scale if we're really going to get on top of this issue in the time scale. And of course, Pachama, the organization that you founded and you're still the CEO of, was one of the first 5 startups to receive funding from Amazon through the Climate Pledge Fund. So congratulations to that. Can you just give us a little bit of background to your organization and how you got to this point with the Climate Pledge Fund?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tom. Yes, we started this company with a mission of restoring nature as a solution to climate change. As you very well know, we have 1 billion hectares that can be restored as forest, and we have all the standing tropical forests that are providing a great service mitigating climate change. And carbon markets can play a role at financing that restoration and conservation. We started this company because we thought that technology could play a very important role at unlocking the full potential of this market by bringing more transparency, efficiency, and accountability. And to do that, we use the latest on machine learning algorithms to analyze satellite and LiDAR data and be able to determine in almost real time how much carbon is being sequestered by forests worldwide. And as part of that mission, we started connecting with great companies such as Amazon, and we were super delighted that they decided to support us on that mission, and are really looking forward to helping Amazon and many other companies on their very ambitious net zero plans that entail reducing emissions, of course, but also removing carbon from the atmosphere while protecting these very important ecosystems for us and for other species as well.
That's fascinating. And I love the application of technology to that. I mean, as you said, of course, the primary focus of the Climate Pledge is the reduction of emissions. But alongside that, we know that we also have to get on top of carbon removals and really do it properly, right? And I think that that's an issue that the corporate climate change space has had a kind of on and off again relationship with. How do you feel that is right now? Because while we certainly agree that emissions reductions needs to be the primary focus, we also think we need to get on top of that issue and get it right, because now this is an all solutions at all times challenge that we need to face.
Exactly. I think it all comes down to transparency and to making that effort, and it's going to take time to decarbonize the economy. Today, we can and must start protecting these forests that we continue to deforest at a really alarming rate in places like the Amazon rainforest, right? And I think that it's great to see companies take that multifaceted approach of saying we're going to reduce our emissions, we're going to also support ecosystems that during the next 3 decades, that are the key decades, can sequester hundreds of gigatons of carbon from the atmosphere.
Amazing. Now we're going to have some questions in a little bit. So if you have questions, please do put them in the chat, and they will be presented by Heather in a few minutes' time. But MATHSY, I'd like to go back to you because, you know, as one of the signatories to the pledge, you're carbon neutral today. You achieved that through a combination of deep emissions reductions as well as carbon removals using offsets. Can I ask, on that journey, as you've increased efficiency, you've deployed renewable energy, what's been the hardest element of that mix to get right?
Tom, I would say that, you know, for us, the will was always there, you know, because we made the commitment, you know, in terms of coaxing the management or convincing the management that we had to go carbon neutral. That really was not a challenge for us because the founders set up the stage for us. But, even when we had taken up this target, we didn't really know what it meant in terms of becoming carbon neutral. So one of the first things that we had to struggle with was that, we had to know where we stood in terms of our carbon footprint. We had to meter everything. Just for the context, we are an IT company, and our major emissions, our direct emissions, come from the energy usage that run our data centers, our buildings, our laptop usages, the cooling, lighting, and environments. So our direct emissions come from all of this energy that we consume. And it was very important for us to know where we are, to even identify these small areas. So the biggest challenge for us was the metering exercise when we started the journey. But, eventually it turned out to be one of our greatest achievements as well, because as we speak today, we have I think about 40,000 plus connected devices. We have, we've got smart meters where we've kind of understood where we stand in terms of our energy consumption. We were able to identify these areas for improvements, and probably initial stages, it was just, making the most of the low-hanging fruits in terms of the energy efficiency projects. We even went ahead and installed, we have what is called the Central Command Center, which actually monitors about 40 million square feet of our office spaces across India. So, while initially to get there, it was a challenge. I think that has helped us, achieve what we have done today, because as we speak again, we've achieved about 55% reduction in our per capita energy consumption since 2008. And that's a huge reduction, because just to give you a sense, our employee strengths have grown by almost 200%, whereas our absolute energy consumption, thanks to all the energy efficiency measures that we've put in place, has only grown by about less than 20%, which is, just testimony to the work that has gone in. The second biggest challenge for us was the renewable energy space. We had 3 levers to go ahead and become carbon neutral. We said we'll reduce our energy consumption, and then we will, for whatever energy consumption that remains, we will switch to renewable sources of energy. Now, while the investments were there, while the funding, the intentions were there, just the green policies across various regions became a huge hurdle for us. Today we stand at about 44% renewable energy, but the reality is that we would have wanted to be 100% renewable energy by financial year 2020, and that's still not been possible for us, in spite of heavy investments on solar.
Okay.
So that was the second thing. Just the last point for us in terms of a challenge was the offsets. While there's enough initiatives that you run within the company, you can never be really a zero emitting company, right? You would have employees commuting to work, you would have business travels and things like that. So how do you really neutralize that, for which we had to depend on the offsets and identifying the right offset projects, the carbon offset projects, which for Infosys was important that we only depend on community-based offset projects. So identifying these projects, implementing them, and actually managing these end-to-end was not really easy, but I would say that it has been a very fulfilling experience, because we've seen the impact through these projects. Today we support about 102,000 families across India, and we've created jobs for about 2,500 people. So we see that these are small steps, but these are really impactful steps, and we feel it's good. It's good.
That's really helpful and amazing. It's so great, I have to say, to have an Indian climate leadership story. There are so many out there, and I think they're not featured enough. So really appreciate you sharing that. Diego, that last point on offsets there is so good. And what you said about AI, use of AI, being able to tell how forests are growing, it's just going to be such a critical piece. We're going to have to go to Heather for some Q&A in a minute, but I'd really love to hear you explain. We are all invested in your success. If we need you to keep being more successful and to get this right. What are the barriers to that continued growth and success?
Sure. One of the obstacles that we've been trying to face is that we need to connect all the data available about forests worldwide. That means connecting different sources of satellite images, but also forest inventories that come from governments many times. So we're knocking on doors of the forest services around the world to get access to these inventories that we can use to train our algorithms and improve the efficiency of these algorithms. So if anybody has access to forest data, please reach out and we'd love to exchange data, right? We can also give you guys data back if in exchange for your data. Another one is we are thinking deeply about how to finance the origination of new reforestation projects that take some time from the moment in which you start preparing the soil, preparing the nurseries and planting the seedlings until you can actually claim carbon capture. It's a couple of years. So we're thinking innovative ways in which we can finance that gap using remote sensing and using market mechanisms to get all this forest started that we need to achieve the goal.
Amazing. That's so interesting and helpful. And I love that you're engaging with this technology. Heather, over to you.
Hello, thank you for the time. There's a ton of questions here, very specific. I'm going to go to one that's more general. Tom, you spoke of collaboration at the beginning of the session and talking about how these companies could collaborate with each other. So I'm curious for the panelists, how they've seen a collaboration with another company, with a startup, for example, as accelerating their own action. As an example, are you working with other companies in your industry to help kind of come to collective goals so that you can execute against them faster?
Sure, I can jump first, Heather. We were recently in a panel together with Microsoft and Verra and the World Resource Institute. And these are organizations that we're collaborating closely with because we do think that coalitions are the answer. We all have to agree on the main standards when it comes to carbon offsets, for example, and make sure that each part plays a role. We also collaborated with some of the main satellite companies like Planet and Maxar, and really excited about the push that all these collaborations mean for an organization like us.
Matisse?
I think collaboration has been, more or less the foundation for Infosys journey. We've collaborated with universities, we've collaborated with various corporates. It could be Saint Gobain for helping us with the facade, or it could be, we've collaborated with architects and engineers and several companies to kind of push the boundaries. And I think it's been many a times a proud moment for us because through our intent to push the boundaries, they've come up with products that have been probably the first of its kind for Infosys when we used it, but then it's become an offering that they could take to the market as well. And they had a case that they could refer to. They could say that this worked for Infosys fantastically, and so here's a product that you could use as well. So collaboration, not just with corporates, but also with the research institutes and universities and academia has really helped Infosys.
Heather, do you want to jump in another question, or what's next?
Yeah, this is a zinger.
All right.
What role should climate justice play in corporate action plans? So we've talked about this quite a bit at Verge. I don't hear it as part of the climate pledge. What should it be? Should it be part of the climate pledge, and how are these two companies addressing that?
Happy to go first. Yes, I definitely think that climate justice is a big part of solving climate change. And in our case, it has to do with the indigenous communities that live in the forest that we attempt to protect. And it means involving the voices of everyone who will be affected by reforestation or forest conservation plans, hearing the concerns and considering the interest of every stakeholder, and considering social justice, equality, empowerment of women and indigenous rights as a very major factor on designing carbon plans. So very important.
I think I would second what Diego said, because even for Infosys, this has been a big part of how we went about our carbon offset projects. While we have the choice of just procuring offsets credits from the market, Infosys chose to do projects that were community based, and the whole thinking behind that was, most of the times the people suffering the global warming and climate change, the repercussions are people that are probably in smaller, the least developed nations, or probably even the rural areas, who are probably not contributing to the disaster, right? So that is the reason why we targeted projects in rural parts of India, so that we could take into consideration their problems, address them, and even create a positive impact, not just look at addressing change, but also create a positive impact through our projects. And that continues to be the way. And I think even with our goals that we've committed this for the next decade, the carbon community-based rural carbon offset projects continue to be on high up on our radar. Yeah.
Thanks for your perspective. Tom, I know you need to wrap things up.
Yes, thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining us, both the panelists and for Greenbiz for having us. Very excited about the next phase of the pledge, and really enjoyed talking to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Diego.